Hello and welcome to another playbook. This one is a playbook on how to accelerate your learning. And the technique that I'm going to teach you is a technique that I stumbled into when I was very young, when I was in middle school, and it's something that I've used now for more than 25 years and only realized quite recently, perhaps in the last decade, in terms of how effective that technique was. And it's a very, very simple technique. The technique is that you learn by teaching. So let's get into it, right? So think like Richard Feynman. Now, for those of you who don't know, Richard Feynman was a very famous American physicist. He was a Nobel Prize winner. He won a Nobel Prize in quantum electrodynamics. He was also a very famous professor. He used to teach a class at Caltech to freshmen, which were compiled together as the Feynman lectures. But most importantly, he was a citizen scientist, which meant that he simplified science for regular people. And that's probably his greatest contribution to the world of science, because he got so many younger people interested in science. But something Feynman did phenomenally well, which is called the Feynman learning technique, is essentially that he used to boil down all his learning in terms of his teaching. So his thesis to his colleagues usually used to be that, hey, do we collectively know enough about a topic? And he would give this as a challenge to his colleagues and say, hey, take the weekend, maybe take 2 weekends and come back and tell me if what you know about a topic, are you able to turn it into a course for freshmen? He himself very famously, after winning his Nobel Prize, tried to turn quantum electrodynamics into a course for freshmen. After spending many months on it, he came back and told his colleagues, we don't know enough about quantum electrodynamics because I, who am the expert on this field, am not able to turn it into a lecture for freshmen. We need to go back to the drawing board and do more, right? So this was Feynman's famous technique, right? Whenever he wanted to challenge people, challenge his students that, hey, have you learned enough? Do you understand the topic well enough? Let's see if you can teach it. So let's break down the steps of the learning technique of Richard Feynman. I've adapted it over the years, and I think it is more effective in this particular way. So first thing, pretend to teach a concept to someone younger than you or somebody who's less experienced than you about the topic. Now, this could be, you could pretend that you're teaching this topic to a kid. You could pretend you're teaching it to a 6th grader. You can pretend you're teaching this to a college kid, or you can pretend that you're teaching this to a colleague who might not know enough about a topic, maybe who doesn't know enough about the problem that you've been working on for a long time. So it doesn't mean that they are a novice. It's just that they don't know enough about something that you are trying to teach them. So that's step one. Step two, because you're pretending to teach this topic, you are essentially coming up with a format for this course. You're coming up with content for this course, right? So say you want to take 20 minutes and tell someone about a topic that you understand. So you recently launched a product and you want to share the learnings that, hey, we were trying to solve for early retention of our users, and these are the 3 experiments we did. This is what we learned from these experiments, which perhaps all of you can also apply when you try and solve for your product. But as you're coming up with this concept, you would realize that there are gaps, right? And the moment there are gaps in your explanation, they will usually come from places because you're using too much jargon or you're not able to simplify the concept enough, which is where you will go back and learn. You will go back and learn more. You will go back to the source material and try and figure out, why am I not able to crystallize my thoughts better? Why am I not able to condense it down into its core proposition, right? And this would lead you to simplify your thought process further. Right? So essentially it's this process of like, hey, let me pretend to teach a concept. Oh, I don't think I'm able to teach this concept well because there are still gaps in my understanding and the way I'm explaining this. Let me go learn again. Let me simplify. Let me try and teach again. But the difference with Feynman's technique was, finally, you do have to teach and share. And I think this is super critical. I feel like this last step is the step which brings it all together. When you finally go in front of people, right, and teach or share, put up a blog post, write a Twitter thread, stand in front of your colleagues and make a presentation. This is when it all comes together. And this is when you get first-hand feedback on whether people understood what you were trying to teach. And this is when the concept finally gets deeply embedded in your brain, right? So a simple diagram, multiple sources of learning. You could learn from books, you could learn by doing, you could learn by reading blogs, whatever be your method of learning, simplify it, pretend to teach it to someone, find the gaps, learn again, simplify, follow this loop a few times, and then finally teach it. And if you're able to do that, that is when you know you've really, really learned. And this is what accelerates your teaching. This is where you can go from 0 to 60 incredibly fast, and then finally take that step of going from 60 to 100 and actual mastery of the subject. So where do you begin? Where most people get stuck is, okay, so the technique is fairly straightforward, but how do we go about it? So I'm going to take a few examples and take you through how you could take these different sources of learning and actually learn and teach. So let's take examples. Suppose you've read a really good book or a blog or a research article recently. Summarize it. That is it. Summarize it. Turn it into a Twitter thread, into a LinkedIn post or a blog post, or send it out to your office colleagues. But share with everyone, hey, I've read this wonderful book. These are the 3 major concepts that I learned from this book. I hope all of you also read it. Done. That's it. If you're able to condense it down into its core, you've learned something about it, right? So this is step 1 in which you can learn. Step 2, if you worked on a project recently, share the learnings. What went right? What went wrong? How could we have improved it in the future? And share it with your colleagues. Put it together as an email. Take 15 minutes in an afternoon and invite everyone into a meeting room or on a Zoom call and share your learnings with people. Put together a short slide deck on this, right? And this is how you will learn, and you will reinforce your learning. If you like using a new product, do a product deconstruct. We've spoken about product deconstructs in a different video, but yeah, do a product deconstruct. What works and why? What doesn't work and why not? How would I improve it, right? How would I fix it? And how would I create a product which is 10x better? So do product deconstructs. Share it with the wider world. Put it online. Share it with your colleagues. Share it with your friends, right? If you are learning in a more organized way, right? So say you're taking a course online, or you're going to a classroom and doing it in a classroom setting, doesn't matter in what way you're learning. Become a teaching assistant on the course the next time around that course is happening. That's a great way of reinforcing your learning. If you don't have time for that, summarize the learnings from the course in a one-pager. One of the most amazing things that I discovered over the last few years were notes from my friends who went to B school. So I never went to B school, but I often speak to friends and ask them, hey, which was your favorite class in school? And they'll be like, man, I really loved, say Glenn Oaken's class at NYU Stern. And I'm like, do you have notes on that? And they'd be like, yes. Do you want to see them? I mean, we have those notes. We refer to them once in a while. And I just went through their notes, then looked up a few online resources and looked up a few online videos of that prof. And I got so much more from that. So the fact that my friends had put down these beautiful 2-page, 3-page long notes, and they'd condensed everything that they'd learned over a semester-long course was amazing. Do that. It would come in handy. I mean, I've learned so much from others because they were able to condense down their learning into a 2-3 pager. So when you complete a course, put down all your learnings from that course in a 1-pager, in a 2-pager, 3-page document, right? The other way in which I see a lot of friends learn is when they are investors. They are either public market investors or VCs, or in fact, if they just want to learn a little bit more about investment. And in fact, in this day and age, where a lot of people are trying to learn about the financial world and are trying to teach financial literacy to others, they write a memo. They tell people why they should invest in, say, a public company or a private company, right? So write down your memo. Why is this company effective? What are they doing which is rare? What are they doing? What is their strategic advantage? Why would they win as compared to other people? And again, you could pick any sector. The point is, all these things, there are so many more examples. Doesn't matter what your source of learning is and what your area of learning is. You can figure out a way to teach it or share it with other people. And in this process, simplify the terms that you're using and be a lot more effective in the way you're teaching by figuring out the gaps in your learning and going back to the source material, and follow this loop of learning and teaching. And believe me, it'll have phenomenal results on your career. It'll have phenomenal results in your ability to learn so much more about the world. And I've applied it to different topics. I've applied it to as a designer, as a game designer. I learned game design this way by just playing a lot of games and deconstructing games. I did this as a writer, where I learned everything about writing by reading a lot of books and by reading inputs from famous writers, and then working on my craft and working on my writing, and then actually going and by teaching it to other people. And now as a product manager, this is what I constantly do. Whatever I learn, I try and teach it to others. So it's a very, very effective technique. it's a timeless technique in that sense, and I think it'll stand the test of time. So do try it out and let me know how the results are. So and if you're enjoying these playbooks, do subscribe to the channel and watch the other videos on the channel. Definitely catch the video on product deconstructs. Take care and bye bye. See you in the next playbook.